Have you ever wondered why some women choose to live alone? No boyfriend, no partner, not even appearing to be searching for one. It's not loneliness, it's not hopelessness. It's not the result of heartbreak. It's something much deeper, more uncomfortable. A truth that unsettles because it breaks everything we were taught about a woman's role in love. When a woman chooses to live alone, she isn't giving up, she's finding herself. And that kind of discovery doesn't come with applause, likes, or company. It comes with silence, with strength, and with a kind of freedom that most people still don't understand. It's not coldness, it's clarity. It's not pride, it's self-respect. She's not empty, she's full of herself. Because when a woman discovers she can be alone and still be happy, the system begins to tremble. How do you control someone who doesn't need to be rescued? How do you manipulate a woman who no longer believes in the fairy tale of love that hurts? She doesn't want to fill a void, she wants to share abundance. She's not looking for a love story to tell the world. She's looking for a connection that respects her wholeness. And that, for many, is terrifying. Carl Jung once said, "Everything we deny in ourselves becomes our shadow." Maybe that's why so many women fear solitude, because they're afraid to see themselves without filters, without noise. But there are others, like her, who've already done it. They've gone deep. They've felt the weight of their wounds. They've cried in silence, and instead of staying broken, they chose to rebuild. If this story is already resonating with you, don't leave without subscribing and sharing your thoughts in the comments. This channel is for you, the one who's waking up. The woman who chooses solitude doesn't do it because she gave up on love, it's because she stopped begging for it. She got tired of burning for people who never wanted to feel her warmth. Over time, she learned that giving everything guarantees nothing, that loving isn't always mutual, and that too often what hurts isn't love, it's attachment, it's fear, it's emptiness. Wearing a mask, she hasn't closed herself off. She simply stopped opening up for those who don't know how to enter without breaking her. She prefers her peace over the romantic chaos of those who love from anxiety, from need, from games. And while the world shouts fall in love now, she whispers not yet, with deep awareness, because she knows it's not love if she has to betray herself to keep it. She doesn't want promises that mean nothing. She wants presence. She's not waiting to be chosen. She wants to choose. Because she finally recognized herself as whole. And from that wholeness, she no longer accepts fragments. She stopped obsessing over fitting in. Her soul didn't come to be shaped, it came to expand. That's why she's judged. That's why they call her complicated, cold, distant. Because she doesn't need. Because she doesn't chase. Because she won't follow the traditional script. And that makes people uncomfortable. She is living proof that a woman can be happy without depending on anyone. And when someone can't be controlled, the system labels her dangerous, but what few understand is that this danger comes from her clarity. She doesn't want a story to tell the world, she wants a life that makes sense to her soul. And until that comes, if it ever does, she stays with herself. She's not waiting for miracles. She's not looking for heroes. She already rescued herself once, and she'll do it again if she has to. She didn't become strong overnight. Her strength isn't arrogance, it's scar tissue. Every boundary she sets today is a line that someone once crossed without permission. Every no she says now echoes the yeses that once betrayed her. Her clarity isn't pride, it's survival. Because there came a point when she realized that no one was going to protect her if she didn't start by protecting herself. This woman isn't running from love. She's just become too conscious to keep falling into diluted versions of it. She no longer accepts love that makes her smaller, or stories that require her to shrink to fit inside them. She's been there, and it hurt. Too much. That's why now she's selective. Not because she thinks she's better than anyone, but because she finally understands her worth. She doesn't want inflated promises, she wants truth. She's not seeking emotional highs, she's seeking emotional maturity. And that, she knows, is rare. Not impossible, but rare. She's loved with everything she had. She gave until there was nothing left. She poured herself out to feel worthy of being loved. But one day she realized, I'm not too much, I was just in places that required me to be less. Since that moment, she stopped shrinking. She stopped masking. She stopped silencing her needs just to avoid being too intense, because she's done paying for acceptance with her authenticity. And if you're in this process of waking up too, this channel is your space. Subscribe, leave your voice in the comments, and share this message with someone who needs to hear it. We're rebuilding a community that is no longer content with surviving, we're here to heal. A woman who lives alone is not an incomplete woman. She is a woman who has learned to be her own company without feeling lonely. And that, though it may sound simple, is a quiet revolution. Because while the world keeps whispering that something is missing, she smiles in peace, knowing it's not about lack, it's about choice. She has learned to tell the difference between being alone and feeling empty. Solitude, for her, is a sacred space, not a punishment, but a room where her soul can breathe without pressure, without expectations, without masks. And it is there in that deep silence where she has heard the truths she once drowned in noise. Truths like, not everything that shines is love, not everything that hurts leads to growth, not everything that arrives deserves to stay. And above all, not everything that makes her feel accompanied makes her feel alive. Because yes, she's had company. She's been in relationships where she was seen, but not truly looked at, touched but not truly felt. wanted but not genuinely honored. And she got tired of filling others while her own well ran dry. Tired of justifying, of waiting, of begging for affection that only wore a mask of love. Now, she chooses herself every day, even when it hurts, even when it's misunderstood, even when she still longs for someone to hold her soul. But she knows some embraces suffocate, and some silences contain more than 1,000 ill-intentioned words. That's why her new measure of love isn't I love you, it's I respect you. And while the world rushes to seek validation, she walks slowly in peace, because she knows that everything that arrives too fast leaves just as quickly. And she's no longer here for fleeting stories. She's here for bonds that feel like home. Many think that the woman who lives alone is unreachable, unbreakable, even proud. But they don't see what lies beneath. A story of defeats turned into wisdom. They say she's cold, but in truth she's felt too much. So much that she learned not to give herself away without reason. Her tenderness didn't disappear, it just stopped being free. This woman still dreams of love, but not just any love. Not the kind that consumes conditions or demands that she hide parts of herself. She dreams of a love that doesn't require her to shrink. A bond where she can expand, not contract. Someone who doesn't dim her light but adds fuel to her flame. And until that love arrives, if it ever does, she stays with herself. Because she now knows that being alone was never the problem. The real problem was losing herself just to keep someone else. And that lesson wasn't theoretical, it was lived. It came after heartbreaks. After silent nights where she realized she'd rather cry alone than keep smiling beside someone who couldn't see her. Now she's created her space. Not perfect, but authentic. A place where emotions don't need to be disguised to be accepted. Where she can be light and shadow, strength and softness. Because she knows now she doesn't have to fit any mold to be worthy of love. And that's why her presence makes people uncomfortable. Because she reflects what many don't dare to become. She doesn't justify herself. She doesn't explain. She doesn't sell her soul. She simply is. And that being free, raw, and unapologetic is her most powerful resistance. She hasn't closed herself to love. She's closed herself to exhaustion. To promises with no soul, to caresses that feel hollow, to beautiful words masking a lack of depth. She doesn't want someone to entertain her for a few weeks. She wants someone who dares to look within, who can sit in silence without needing to escape it. That's why she seems difficult. Because she no longer acts from lack. Because she doesn't seek to feel loved, she seeks to feel respected. There's a big difference between being loved and being emotionally held. And after falling so many times, she's learned that difference painfully, but also with resolve. Now she listens with different ears. She sees with new eyes. She senses from a deeper place. Her sensitivity has become her filter. If she feels something is out of tune with her truth, she doesn't try to fix it, she walks away. Quietly, without drama, without resentment. Just with the peace of someone who knows how to protect her own heart. Her story is not about giving up on love but giving up on begging, and that changes everything. Because when a woman no longer needs to be loved to feel worthy, the kind of love she's willing to receive transforms to stops being about need and becomes about choice. And not everyone understands that. She wants to love from fullness, not from fear, to give without losing herself, to hold without carrying someone else's weight. But that kind of connection, though it seems simple, is rare, because it requires inner work, it requires maturity, it requires someone who's done with superficial games. And until someone with that same level of truth arrives, she remains alone, not out of pride, not out of fear, but out of loyalty to herself. Silence no longer burdens her, it heals her. Because she learned that the louder the noise outside, the more disconnected she becomes inside, and she refuses to get lost again. She doesn't want to repeat the pattern of silencing herself to avoid discomfort, of shrinking to be loved, of softening her intensity just to avoid being too much. Not anymore. Now her intensity is her filter. Her presence is her shield. Her intuition is her compass. She doesn't need to test anyone. Life does that for her. She simply observes who stays when she shows up exactly as she is. Unfiltered, unapologetic, whole. Those who leave were never meant to stay, and those who remain, they are gold. Yes, it hurts sometimes. Sometimes the night feels heavy. Sometimes the heart remembers and tightens. But now she knows she isn't broken, she's alive. And being alive hurts, but it also sets her free. Because the freedom she has found is not comfortable, it is sacred. And she's willing to defend it, even if it means walking alone longer than she'd like. That's why, when someone tries to impress her with poses, with rehearsed lines or empty declarations, she just smiles. Not out of arrogance but recognition. I've been here. I've healed this. It's no longer mine. If these words resonate with you, it's because something inside you is waking up too. Subscribe, leave a comment, and share this video with other women on this same path. We are building a space for those who decided to never settle again. She no longer negotiates her peace. She's learned it's her most sacred treasure. And she won't give it away for a miss you or a promise disguised as redemption. Her heart no longer opens to words but to real presence. And presence can't be faked, it's felt, it's sustained. It's not that she doesn't want to love. On the contrary, she longs to love deeply, but she wants to do so with her feet grounded and her soul lit, not with her eyes closed and her judgment clouded. She's loved from need. She's given blindly, and in both cases, she ended up empty. Now she wants to love from clarity. She no longer chases, insists, or begs, because she knows what's real doesn't need to be forced. If she has to drag it, she doesn't want it. If she has to beg for it, she doesn't need it. And if being herself scares someone off, then they were never for her. Simple as that. Clean, healthy. Many confuse her firmness with coldness, but behind every boundary there's a story. Behind every distance, a wound that finally healed. She didn't become rigid. She became conscious. She didn't become hard. She became wise. Life forged her like fire does to steel. She's stronger now, yes, but also gentler about what she lets in. That's why when she chooses to open up, she does it with fierce honesty. She doesn't play. She doesn't manipulate. She doesn't seduce to retain. She simply loves, without conditions, without chains. And that way of loving, so free, so clean, so rare, is exactly why most don't know what to do with her. Some call her unbreakable, as if she doesn't have the right to tremble on the inside. But what they don't see is that she has cried in silence so many times. She no longer needs anyone's validation to know her worth. Her value didn't come from a Yuri beautiful or from a future promise. Her value was born the moment she chose to never betray herself again. She has walked through her own hell, not once but many times, and she doesn't wear that as a badge, but as a sacred memory, because it was in that darkness that she discovered what no one taught her, that her light didn't come from others, it was always inside her. She didn't need to be chosen to feel worthy, she just needed to recognize herself, and now that she has, there's no going back. She knows she still has wounds. There are days when her heart feels heavy and her desire for connection whispers loudly, but even in those moments she doesn't settle. She doesn't return to places where she had to disappear in order to stay. Because the woman who lives alone isn't avoiding love, she is protecting her emotional integrity. She has learned that solitude isn't a sign of failure, it's a mark of strength. That being single doesn't mean absence of love, but presence of discernment. And that a true bond, one worth having, should never hurt more than it heals. She no longer gets dazzled by the surface. She seeks what's real, and if that takes time to appear, it's fine, because she understands now her waiting is not emptiness. It's preparation, it's growth, it's respect for the woman she has become. No, it's not that she stopped believing in love. It's that now she believes in a very different kind of love than the one she was sold. She's no longer interested in romantic love full of shallow gestures and inflated promises. She wants conscious love, present, grounded, real, love that doesn't need to scream to be heard, or stir up drama to feel alive. She wants love that respects her silence, that doesn't pressure her to give more than she has, or fear her quiet moments, because she doesn't want to be the best woman someone ever had. She wants to be the woman who walks beside someone who has also chosen themselves, someone who didn't come to complete her, but to share wholeness. That kind of love isn't found on every street corner. It requires depth. It requires someone who's descended into themselves, confronted their fears, disarmed their ego, someone who's spent nights alone in the darkest parts of their soul and still embraced themselves with tenderness. That's why, if she chooses to remain alone, it's not because her heart is closed, it's because now, she knows how to protect it. She hasn't lost her faith. She hid it in the depths of her chest, so she wouldn't keep giving it to those who couldn't hold it. And now that she's recovered it, she doesn't offer it impulsively. She shares it with those who've also done the inner work, because this woman doesn't live alone out of whim or fear. She lives alone because she's learned that her own company is sacred, and any love that dares to interrupt that silence better come to build, not to break. She no longer seeks to be understood by everyone. She knows not everyone has the capacity to see the invisible, honor the subtle, or respect what runs deep. Her truth is not a manifesto, it's a whisper, and those who can hear it are the ones who've also walked through their own darkness. She doesn't need to shout that she's okay. Her peace speaks for her. The same peace that once cost her years of inner battles, of letting go of what she loved but no longer served, of walking away from what was familiar to finally step into what was true. And now, every step she takes alone carries a weight few can comprehend. The weight of having chosen never to lie to herself again, because when a woman can look herself in the mirror without shame, when she can inhabit her story without hiding, it changes her. She no longer sells herself for crumbs. She no longer bends for temporary affection. She no longer trades her soul for company. And though that may close doors, it opens paths. Some think time is against her. That age makes her less valuable in the market of love. But what they don't see is that with each year she blooms inwardly. She becomes wiser, freer, more herself. She doesn't want youthful love, she wants mature love. She's not chasing fleeting sparks, she craves sustained presence. If this story is waking something up inside you, you are not alone. Many of us are returning home to ourselves. Subscribe, comment, and share this video. Together we are breaking the mold and building a new way to love. One that doesn't ask us to disappear, She's no longer waiting to be saved. She doesn't need to be, because she rescued herself again and again on the longest nights when no one was watching, when the tears had no witness. In that silence she became strong but also tender, not with those who hurt her but with the woman she once was, the one who gave too much, who stayed too long, who silenced her truth to keep from being left. Today, she honors that version of herself. She doesn't judge her because it was thanks to her that she finally woke up. The woman who once broke open planted the seed of the one standing today, someone who no longer settles, someone who doesn't fear walking alone because she knows too well the price of walking beside someone who doesn't truly see her. She still believes in love deeply, but in a different kind of love, one that doesn't run from emotional presence, one that isn't frightened by the depth of a soul, a love that doesn't try to fix her but dares to know her, that doesn't ask her to shrink but invites her to expand. And if that takes time, so be it, because she no longer waits from anxiety, but from awareness. Some call her too much, and maybe she is for those who haven't done the work, but she's no longer interested in pleasing. She's interested in resonance, in truth, in love that's alive and grounded, not rehearsed and conditional. And if you're learning to choose yourself too, this message is for you. You're not broken, you're not wrong, you're waking up. Subscribe, comment below with the part that touched your soul, and share this video with someone who needs it. This was never selfishness, it was self-love. When a woman chooses herself, it's not out of disdain for others, it's out of loyalty to her soul. Because she no longer wants to fit into molds that suffocate her. She no longer wants to belong to spaces where she has to shrink to be accepted. She wants relationships where she can be who she is without needing to ask permission. She's not looking for company to fill the silence, but for someone who will honor it with her. Someone who doesn't feel uncomfortable with her introspective moments, who doesn't mistake her silence for coldness or her firmness for arrogance. Someone who understands that her freedom isn't a threat, it's an invitation to grow together without losing themselves. And if that person doesn't arrive, it's okay, because she has already arrived at herself, and that journey is incomparable. She's stopped begging for explanations. She no longer justifies her needs. She doesn't feel guilty for saying no or for closing doors that lead nowhere, because now she chooses from truth, not from fear. Her greatest achievement hasn't been financial or even emotional independence. It has been spiritual independence. Learning to live without betraying herself. Choosing peace over pleasing. Letting go of living by others' expectations. Her solitude isn't like its revolution. A revolution that doesn't scream, but transforms. That doesn't ask for approval, but inspires. Because her very existence in authenticity becomes a mirror that both disturbs and awakens, and even if the world doesn't understand her, she no longer needs it to. She only seeks to be faithful to herself. She doesn't want relationships born out of habit. She doesn't need shared routines to feel alive. Her fire isn't lit by shallow attention or by the illusion of future promises. It's ignited by presence, by truth, by the energy of someone who doesn't come to complete her but to walk alongside her, maskless and real. People see her and think, she's doing too well alone. Surely no one interests her. But it's not that she has not interested it. It's that her soul now demands more. She no longer craves superficial chemistry, empty conversations, or emotional availability that only lasts a weekend. She wants something deeper, coherence. She doesn't want I love yous that fall apart at the first sign of conflict. She doesn't want hands that touch her body if they can't hold her essence. She doesn't want to be a muse, a savior, or someone's project. She wants to be simply herself, with everything that means. Her light and her shadow, her depth and her peace. And that's exactly where many retreat. Because she isn't easy, not in the way people expect. Not because she's hard to love, but because she's impossible to conquer with superficiality. She needs truth to open, time to trust, and soul to stay. And in a world of fast rewards, that makes her a challenge few are willing to face. But she doesn't care to be liked by everyone. She cares to resonate with those who can see the unseen, who don't flee from the discomfort of real intimacy, who don't fear silence or unfiltered truths. Because after all her healing, her soul is no longer interested in appearances. She wants bare, sacred, honest truth. She's not waiting for someone to choose her. She's watching to see if someone is worth being chosen, because she's learned that reciprocity shouldn't be begged for, it should be mutual. And what isn't freely given isn't worth forcing. She's done chasing what doesn't flow, done insisting where there's no echo, done staying where her soul dims. She used to give without limit. She used to love from emotional hunger. She used to pour herself out to feel worthy of love. But every time she did, she ended up further from herself, more confused, more alone, even when accompanied. Until one day she understood, I am not too much, I was just in spaces that demanded I be less. From that day forward, she stopped shrinking. She stopped pretending. She stopped silencing her needs just to avoid being too intense, because she was tired of paying for acceptance with her authenticity. And that day her story changed. Not on the outside but within. Now, every bond in her life must pass through a sacred filter. Her peace. If it threatens it, she lets go. If it weakens it, she questions it. If it nourishes it, she pours into it. Not everything qualifies anymore. Not everything gets in. Her heart is no longer available for rehearsals at S, only open for what aligns with who she is today. And that's not pride. That's maturity. That's self-love. That's knowing that living alone isn't failure, it's a powerful choice. Because there's more dignity in a whole solitude than in an empty companionship. And once a woman understands that, she becomes immune to emotional blackmail and invincible. They say a woman who needs no one becomes intimidating, and it's true, because emotional independence is something most people don't know how to handle. Most are used to relationships built on imbalance where one leans, one gives more, one bends until they vanish. But she no longer fits those patterns. It's not that she doesn't want to share her life, it's that she refuses to lose it in the process. She doesn't want to fuse until she dissolves. She doesn't want love that asks her to give up her essence, because now she knows love isn't supposed to hurt more than it heals, and if it does, it likely isn't love, it's attachment. So now she sees everything differently. She's no longer dazzled by speed, by intensity, or by beautiful lies. Her ears are trained to hear incoherence. Her skin detects imbalance. Her intuition is awake, alert to what she used to ignore out of fear of being alone. Now she chooses with calm. She loves with presence. And she walks away with dignity when a space no longer feels safe, because she has learned to listen to her body, her energy, her inner peace. And if any of them say no, she honors it regardless of the words being spoken. And though many won't understand her, that's okay. She's not here to be understood by everyone. She's here to be true to herself. And in that truth, even when it hurts, even when it's lonely, she found something no fleeting romance ever gave her: freedom. She knows the price of her freedom is the discomfort of those not ready to see her this way. Whole, unapologetic, fearless in solitude. Not because she has no feelings, but because she stopped placing them in unstable hands. She learned that someone who doesn't know what to do with her love doesn't deserve it. And no, it's not hardness, it's clarity. She no longer expects to be understood or accepted by everyone, because she no longer lives to fit in, she lives to expand. And that expansion isn't always comfortable for others, because a woman who prioritizes herself, who sets boundaries, who chooses herself, is a threat to the systems that trained her to wait to be saved, to be completed, to be validated. But she no longer waits now. She acts, she listens, she supports herself. And if someone does come along, someone who can love her with consciousness and maturity, it's one TB to rescue her. It'll be to walk with her, shoulder to shoulder, soul to soul, because she's learned. True love doesn't erase, it accompanies. And when she looks back, she doesn't feel guilty for the broken loves. She feels grateful. Every fall was a signal, every heartbreak an awakening, every disappointment a sacred lesson she now wears on her soul like a quiet reminder. I will never abandon myself again. And that promise, she keeps it, every day, even in silence. Even when no one's watching. When a woman learns to be alone, her way of loving changes forever. Because she no longer loves from lack, but from fullness. She no longer needs to be saved. She no longer looks to be completed. Because she has discovered that real love doesn't come to fill a void, comes to walk alongside someone who has already whole. She doesn't idealize anymore, she observes. She doesn't project, she listens. She doesn't dream up perfect futures. She connects with the present, what truly resonates, what allows her to be without shrinking. And if it's not that, if it's not truth, if it's not soul-deep connection, she walks away. Because she's learned never to betray herself again out of fear of being alone. She no longer clings. She no longer chases. She no longer insists, because she knows what's meant doesn't need to be forced. If she has to push it, she doesn't want it. If she has to beg, it's not for her. And if being her true self makes someone leave, then they were never hers to begin with. She's built a world so rich, so deep, that no one can enter without respect. Anyone who steps inside must do so barefoot, with consciousness, with presence. Her soul no longer tolerates shallowness, lukewarmness, or instability. She's lived too much to settle for anything less than what her truth now demands. And while many still say she's too much, she doesn't take it as an insult anymore. Because yes, she is too much for those who are not ready, but she will no longer shrink, because shrinking for love is what broke her. And refusing to shrink ever again, that's what saved her. She no longer competes with anyone. She doesn't fight to be seen or strive to stand out in hopes of being chosen. Her energy isn't focused on being the best for someone else, it's focused on being the best for herself. Because she has learned that real love begins when you no longer have to prove you're worthy of it. And that doesn't make her arrogant, it makes her free. Because she knows if she has to wear a mask to be loved, then that love isn't hers. If she has to dim her light to be accepted, then it's not the right space. If she has to silence her truth to be held, then it's not a safe love. She walks with calm but with certainty. She knows what she brings, she knows what she offers, and she also knows what she will never give again, because there was a time when she gave everything, and was left with nothing. A time when she confused love with sacrifice, and devotion with self-abandonment. She's not in that place anymore. Now her life is full of her, of moments that don't depend on others, of sacred rituals she created to nourish herself, of silences that aren't emptiness, but refuge. And in that fullness, love is no longer an emergency, it's a possibility. Beautiful, yes, but never necessary. And that shift is what makes her powerful, because she no longer fears losing anyone. Not from indifference, but from the deep certainty that she will never lose herself again. Her love is no longer given as it once was. Now it is offered. Not to be devoured or admired from the surface, but to be shared with someone who has also journeyed inward. Because she doesn't seek connection from emptiness, but from abundance, and that changes everything. She doesn't demand perfection, but she does require presence. She's not asking for eternal promises, just truth in the moment. She doesn't need grand gestures, just coherence. And if that's not there, she walks away. Not because she's close to love, but because she now knows that real love never asks you to lose yourself. She hasn't rejected love. She's rejected everything pretending to be love while rooted in control. She's rejected company that feels more like confinement, care that feels like ownership. She's fine-tuned her sensitivity so much that she can now detect falsehoods instantly. And though it hurts sometimes to let go, she doesn't hesitate. Her soul can no longer tolerate the false. She knows there is still much life ahead, and that love may arrive when she least expects it. But if it does, it must find her whole, not empty, not waiting to be saved, but full of herself, gaze steady, scars visible. Because only then will love be freedom, not a prison. And if that love never comes, that's okay too, because she's already found her own, in her body, her words, her silence. And in a world that constantly wants more, that is already everything. She is not alone. She is with herself. And after everything she's been through, that is more than enough. Because when a woman finds herself, she can never again be lost for anyone else. She no longer begs for love. She no longer needs someone to give her what she now holds within. She lives from fullness, not from need. And from that place, everything that comes must match her truth. She knows the world will keep trying to convince her she's missing something, that she's wasting time, that she should settle a little, but she doesn't listen from fear anymore. She listens from a deep knowing that her path is unique, sacred, untouchable. Because now she gets it. It was never about finding someone to make her happy. It was about never abandoning the happiness she built alone. And if love knocks on her door one day, it will be welcome only if it knows how to dance to the rhythm of her soul. Only if it brings truth in its eyes and calm in its chest, because she no longer loves in haste, she loves with purpose, and that is only possible after choosing herself over and over, even when she was the only one who did. So know the woman who lives alone is not broken. She is free, free from conditioning, from urgency, from outdated scripts, free from needing to be needed to feel worthy, free from repeating what once destroyed her. And in that kind of freedom, there is a power that few understand but many, quietly, deeply, envy.